Five, four, three, two, one. We have ignition. Strap in. You're about to listen to the hottest sounds.
Dream Catcher Radio.
Sometimes when you're in a dark place, you think you've been buried, but actually, you've been planted.
Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down. You could stare me up at the gates of hell, but I won't back down. No, I'll stand my ground. Won't be turned around, and I'll keep this world from dragging me down. Gonna stand my ground.
Okay, we are back discussing the Ralph Christie injustice, and we're now on episode 11. Wow, how time flies, hey Ralph?
Yes, it certainly does. Good afternoon, brothers. Yeah, episode 11, we're into 21st hour of this. But it's certainly exposing a lot of what's the cover-up, and, it's gone right to the top of the British justice system and politicians as well that are involved.
We'll talk about that as well. The whole point of this is to just basically unpack the story with the hope that we can oil the wheels, so to speak, and saying, look, this is not going away. And it seems to be working in your case.
Well, good, yeah, and so it should, because I've told the truth all the way through. So it's quite easy for me to recollect everything. I'm not having to think, oh, that's going to come out or this is going to come out, because I've spoken the truth, and we just know that. Obviously, we spoke last week about with what Dr. Themis had sent over for the English trial. We know that Miriam Shabad, who had been working on the case for me for a year, spent probably a month together in that time. Some in Greece, some in Bradford, some in Leeds, some in London. And then all of a sudden she sends me this email about Cedric interfering with the trial behind the scenes that we read out last week, and that was the last I heard of her. So the only reason she would have probably not gotten involved with it, because she realised that my own defence team were actually working with Cedric without me knowing, and also the horrific crimes that Stephen Thomas has admitted doing to his wife in his divorce statement.
I've got some comments on that, by the way.
Oh, right. Yeah. So, so I can fully understand why she probably, I'm not having a part of this, because she knew I was innocent, did Miriam, was spending so much time with me. And like she said I couldn't be in better hands with Dr. Themis Sophos and one thing or another. And it's quite amazing how many women have actually supported Stephen Thomas, even though he's admitted it. But yeah, so you've had some comments, have you, brothers?
Yes. I'll try and word this correctly, because I've not got a script with it. But Stephen Thomas's wife listens to the show, and through a third party has contacted me. I understand you know who the gentleman is, and basically she wanted to explain, because I was questioning why any sane person in court would basically confess to raping his wife. And it was, from my perspective, apparently I come across this as just unbelievable. Anyway, this is the story. So they were in family court, and in essence, he gave a brief to the judge. He was self-represented. I understand that's to a massive extent. Both of them were. Unbeknown to her, obviously, she was unaware about the financial sort of stuff that's going on in the background, money being transferred left, right, and center. Um, and he basically said to the judge, "Yes, I did rape her," and actually put it down on pen and paper as well. So I mean, I was gobsmacked, to be honest.
Yeah, and he signed it. He signed it as part of the
He did it. He
divorce.
did it before a judge. He did it before a judge. I mean, that's
Yeah,
like as good as saying like I'm giving you an undertaking. It's just I've never heard of such a thing, to be honest, especially in family court proceedings. But that's where that came about, and then it went to the CPS, my understanding.
well,
Uh,
yeah, of course. I mean, you've got to bear in mind that in the Keir Starmer letter that was sent in February 2011, there was 30 articles that we read out in your show about Stephen Thomas's allegations against me, which were totally unfounded. But at that time, Keir Starmer himself knew that this had gone on in the family courts. So did Suzanne Hoy, that's a CPS lawyer, and the list is long. So, and it wasn't just the rape; it admitted beating her up. Her son, was it Christopher, that was beaten up and put into hospital. So there was a history here over a period of time, all in the same divorce note
but
that we're talking about.
this is the thing that I think about Ralph. Yeah, um, that would be very alarming for any let's just say police officer, for example, let alone a judge, um, holier than thou, so to speak. The It would be very alarming, but also when she later found out all the financial issues and the shenanigans that were going on, that should also be alarming as well.
Yeah,
Um, and and she's ended up with nothing but a door being kicked in by the police and this very, very bizarre injunction, if you want to call it that, albeit it's not, um, to end up with that. It makes zero sense to me. And I know you would say, well, I'm just, it's police corruption. And it could be true. It could be clear as day police corruption. If you can, I mean, this person is not someone I even, and Stephen Thomas is not someone I even know, never heard of
no.
it before. How they could have that sort of clout is beyond me.
Well, it's the police are probably the puppets of the CPS, because we've spoken. You know, Keir Starmer was head of the CPS from 2009 to 2013. Well, he'll have known about Stephen Thomas being interviewed in March 2010 regarding this rape and regarding the 3.5 million that have been hidden. And at that point, Stephen Thomas should have been arrested and the case against me dropped. But he's just been protected. It became apparent that somebody called Baroness Alison Levitt, which I think she's in the House of Lords even today, was the chief legal advisor for Keir Starmer at that time. And, she knew about the international letter requests that went to Greece in 2011 as well. And apparently it was her that shut Jane's case down against Stephen Thomas with Susan Hoy, CPS North solicitor, in June 2013. This was about the same time as well that, a far bigger case that was never investigated was the Jimmy Savile one. And Cedric knew a lot about that. He used to tell me about how Jimmy Savile was protected again.
That was a shocking cover up.
Well,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Sure. But one thing that's interesting about this case and the route it's going, we were talking about the injustice of Ralph Christie, like involving the police, West Yorkshire Police, and the court system, and also your barristers failing. And what this is now coming to is a different narrative. Is basically if you are someone, let's just say of status, like Stephen Thomas, perhaps you could bend everybody's ear, and they will start listening.
Yeah, and it's like the amount of women. There's Katie Ward, who's the solicitor for North Yorkshire Police in 2019, was in communications with Pfefferbridge Basra, which was Stephen Thomas's lawyer, about settling the divorce. She was aware of what Stephen Thomas had been through, and she was actually helping Jane at the trial. But she never said, "Well, this man needs arresting." In 2019, there's a judge, another judge that came from Chambers in Leeds, that was in the family court, that apparently Scrattage, who was my defendant at this trial, that where obviously he was in cahoots with Cedric, was actually defending Stephen Thomas in the family court. In 2020. And so Stephen Grattage, on one side, is not bringing Stephen Thomas into the court in Bradford in 2015, where all this would have come out. Ramona Senior hasn't disclosed the divorce papers that we're now discussing with his signature on to my defence team, as she promised in November 2014 she would to Jane Thomas. Simon Bottomley said he knew nothing about the case, and he's head of the IOPC for West Yorkshire. He knew nothing about my case ever, and it was Cedric who reported back to him in April 2014. Andrew West said he knew nothing about it. Well, of course he did, because he knew about it back from before Stephen Thomas was interviewed in March 2010. You've got David Charity, who said that everybody's got all the statements. I don't need them, in an email we spoke about on the show. So you've got the current John Robbins, who sent an email out. He's the current Chief Constable of West Yorkshire Police. He sent an email out to Jane Thomas in 2017 saying that he was not investigating Stephen Thomas. The current mayor of Leeds, Bradham, is aware of what's gone on, and she hasn't done anything. So, when we're looking at what's kind of going on and in the news about, what's going on with these 3 Ukrainian rent boys and Starmer and all the rest of it, Lord Ali and what have you, it's just it seems to me, it just seems part of a sick system that's at the top of the judicial system in the UK. And it's quite wicked, and it needs closing down. But they've all been, the senior police officers that know about it, like Heather Worski, who's the assistant chief constable in West Yorkshire. She's quite aware of what's gone on. Ingrid Lee, that was investigating Cedric, knew about what was going on. She knew what was going on with Jimmy Savile being protected. She actually became the assistant chief constable in South Yorkshire in May 2014, I think it was, and the first thing she did was they arranged the arrest of Cliff Richards at his home in wherever it was, Berkshire, somewhere like that, so that Cliff Richards couldn't give evidence at the Savile inquiry that was going on in August 2014 because he'd been compromised. So it's just a pack of cards that needs to collapse.
Yeah. Funny enough, you talk about the rent boys with Starmer. I remember reading that they're in court either now or shortly because they pled not guilty to. But it's a very interesting story, though, isn't it? But how quiet it's gone, in the UK media.
Well, another very interesting thing is, of course, with Tayyab Ali, who's at Binman's now, that was the lead for my defence. He was Cedric introduced him to me in January 2012. Well, he's now part of what they call Global 195, which is actually bigger than the International Courts of War Crimes that's investigating the atrocities in Gaza. So he's very, very powerful and at the top. And I listened to a podcast he did for 2 hours, and he was talking about how he trusted Starmer. He'd actually employed Starmer in 2008 to work for him as a human rights lawyer. Well, what came out yesterday was that Starmer was actually prosecuting soldiers that were in the war, whichever one it was, the Iraq war, and that's caused a big national.
That's such a bizarre position, to put yourself in that situation with Starmer. That's really bizarre. Because he's going back to Ireland as well, and he's on about Iraq. I mean, that's a massive story. What? Just out of interest, we could always call this barroom talk, couldn't we? We're doing at the moment. We have got to talk about Ralph's case. We've got some interesting stuff to talk about. But What do you reckon would be his incentive to prosecute people after all this time? Do you reckon he's just building a profile to say, look, I've tried my best, but the system is not working for him? Because why would you want to do that? Legality wise as well, I kind of think it's a massive issue. But you're talking about stuff like 50 years ago, some of it.
Yeah.
And what would be his incentive to do this? To people, is it showcasing, showboating? Oh look,
Well,
because the thing is, we for example, in Ireland, we've given full relief to the other side, Sinn Féin, saying, okay, we'll ignore everything you've done, but we're going to now look at our UK veterans. I mean, I had a fascinating interview last year with some veterans that were serving over there. Do you know what they used to do? They used to occupy houses and they used to fill the ground floor with concrete just to prevent bombs being thrown through the door because people knew where they were.
yeah.
And some of what they witnessed over there and had to deal with, and they got told also one of their operations, who was telling me, was just to record what you see. So they're recording people being killed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable, isn't it? They couldn't do
Yeah.
anything, they weren't allowed to do anything. They had to
but
record it.
coming back to what you were saying though about the incentive of Starmer, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a businessman. I'm not a politician, and and I'm not really a lawyer. You've got Starmer prosecuting the very people that Tony Blair sent into a war with total lies about weapons of mass destruction. But they're both key Labour people. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn has a completely different attitude to it all. But again, he's a Labour. Now, I'm not a politician here. I don't want to be. But obviously, if Tayyab was employing Keir Starmer in that time, which he admits on tape he was, my lawyer was as well prosecuting soldiers in the British Army, and now he's head of this 195 global 195 incentive, but he hasn't even managed to protect me from two known criminals to him at a trial in Bradford, one being the self-confessed brother of mine, Cedric Christie, and the other the self-confessed rapist, Stephen Thomas. And they're both still at large, and in the meantime they've managed to get me a collective amount of 28 years of prison time.
Jeremy Corbyn is a weird one, to be honest. He's like the Cinderella of the Labour Party, but obviously he's not Labour no more. But I'm very suspicious of Jeremy Corbyn, to be honest. Me personally, he's just very strange character.
But I mean, look at the amount of killing that's gone on in the last 25 years.
Yeah.
The only war that was probably right to have been correct was us defending the Falkland Islands. But, countries like Iraq, it was just, they've massacred and killed many innocent people based on weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist. And then what they did to Libya, Libya was not what we were told. It was actually challenging the dollar. That was the reason. And Gaddafi is probably the 10th richest man to ever walk the planet, ever.
On Libya, I've got personal knowledge of Libya because I was in Libya probably 5 weeks before the war started, and there was so much going on there. Amazing work going on there. They were building a lot, and basically, when the war started, I mean, how that country is going to take decades to recover. But I was out in the morning, like walking the streets at like 3 o'clock in the morning, perfectly safe. People are out there. They have coffee shops open 24/7, and there'll be people chatting there and that sort of stuff. But I felt so safe there, just wandering around by myself. I was literally by myself.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this is not what you didn't really hear much about Libya in the UK. up until the point of us basically invading without merit. Then talk about human rights and that sort of stuff. Look at where Keir Starmer is at the moment, in China. So the and bad things go on. I get it, it does. But Libya, I went into, and funny enough, I was there part of a UK government envoy, promoting UK businesses to work in Libya. But they obviously weren't aware that basically a war was being planned, and to just basically go and bomb the crap out of the place. And they literally did. Seafront properties got bombed, everything. And Gaddafi's compound, it was huge, but it was pretty obvious. But they just bombed everything.
Yeah, and Gaddafi didn't have any weapons again, of any sort. He was very, very kind to his people. But I mean, the trouble is, we can talk about politics of it. At the end of the day, I'm a businessman and what have you, and I'm not trying to be for or against anything. But if we're coming back to my matter, my father's cousin was Dame Jill Knight, and she was like one of the third top Tories under the Margaret Thatcher. She was actually the Home Secretary for Northern Ireland, and she was on their most wanted list around the Brighton bombings and the rest of it. Fortunately, she retired. She did 30 years as an MP in Edgbaston, and I think that a lot of what's kind of happened to me, because you see, Keir Starmer, when he's head of the CPS, it shouldn't be politically motivated. It should be justice. He's a lawyer. And you wouldn't have thought at that stage he was going to then become a Prime Minister of the UK, and then all this, what's gone on in the last 2 years or however, he's been in, he's caused an awful lot of problems. Because of my connections with Dame Jill Knight, and she was sitting in the House of Lords when in 2011, when that letter went out. She was told by that, and she was up in arms. It was her that put me in touch with Geoffrey Cox, who was going to defend me at the trial. I actually used her address for correspondence from the CPS where she lived at Collingham in Northampton. So because of all this now, I'm beginning to think that I became a bit of a political prisoner rather than anything else, because you just got to look at what happened to, was it Lucy Connolly? She was in the same constituency where Dame Jill Knight lived. And when she was arrested for 3 years for some tweet that she put out. And I think it was her husband that was a councillor.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. But the point that the reason why I'm talking about this and continuing on the conversation is that like you went on about Libya and that sort of thing, corruption. I believe the difference between the corruption in the UK to corruption that goes on elsewhere in the world, we put a facade on it. We wear suits. That means that we're clearly not corrupt. That's what I believe.
I mean, I'll say a very strange thing here, that there's nothing wrong with corruption if you understand it.
Are you talking about the poker table?
No, I'm talking about, like, they talk about Russia being a corrupt country, and they even talk about China being a corrupt country, but they even say Greece is a corrupt country, in a lot of ways, but it's because the UK and America, everybody's whiter than white, so we all follow the laws and all the rest of it. It must be horrendous driving a car in the UK now. I don't think I'd last an hour without getting the maximum 12 points and lose my license because of everything's just formalized, isn't it? And like you say, the people at the top in the UK are the ones that are spinning the narrative and being corrupt. I mean, how much money? I mean, I don't want to get involved with individuals because I'm hoping that some of them will see common sense and help me. But the amount of money that they end up earning. I mean, how many billions is Tony Blair worth, and how much more is he going to get rebuilding what Trump's wanting to do in Gaza on top of the dead bodies of all the children?
Yeah, that's very true, actually, because Right, how they can put him there as a peace envoy is beyond me. Beyond me. I mean, I don't know how that guy sleeps at night, to be honest. But he clearly does. And look at what he's done for his son as well. Lined his pockets. Very, very young man, worth almost 200
I can
million.
remember when he was actually 2003 listening to him, and I actually believed what he said.
I did as well.
Yeah.
I did.
Then they go and
I
there's that
I
professor,
found
wasn't there,
him.
that was murdered in a wood somewhere in London that said it was all nonsense. They haven't got weapons of mass destruction. But anyway, got to be careful because me and you'll get ended up bumped off if we're not careful, brothers.
I'm a nobody, bro. Don't worry, I know my place in life. Okay, we're going. God, how did we get on that journey? Let's carry on. We last week, we were talking through this statement. So let's carry on. We got an interesting email from your brother, not to us at the station, but to somebody else. We're going to discuss that as well, and no doubt many other things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, perhaps we should discuss that first, actually, brothers, if that's okay.
You want to go through this bizarre email, yeah?
Well,
I'm
because
just thinking
it's
about the break. That's all, because the break will be coming up shortly. All right, okay, yeah. So this is an email from Cedric to. I mean, I don't know who this person is. Who is it to?
It's a lady called Catherine Evans, who was married to a guy that was great friends of my parents for many years, who unfortunately died about 20 years ago. His name was Alan Freeman, and then she remarried again about 10 years ago to Mr. Evans, David Evans. And so she's been connected to the family for a long time, and very helpful. And for Cedric, Cedric Rose got into a conversation with Jeff Brown just in the new year, where Cedric was saying that he had the money back from Zakros, came out of Zakros when it didn't. It came back from Mario Churchioni and me out of cash flow. Another downright lie. So yeah, if you want to, maybe do you want to read out some of the correspondence?
Just a quick one. The subject. How do you pronounce that? Ownership of what? How do you pronounce that?
Well, it's a villa it's a villa that Jason and I had in a place called Finnica, and that actual name is a German name. It's like it's a German retreat now. So it's Zitron and Hugel, which will have a German translation, I'm sure.
So
But that's just the name of the retreat.
Three words. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And has this email come out of the blue?
Yeah, she still said it sent it to the owners of the house, the villa, because what actually happened was Catherine took this property off Jason and myself in November 2012. It was just when Cedric had lost his vote as being the PCC for West Yorkshire on honesty and integrity. And she came over in January 2013, met Nikos Adakis, a lawyer, myself and Jason, paid for the power of attorney to be done so Nikos could put it into her name, paid the taxes for it to go into her name. We previously covered her funds on the purchase with Jason and myself, because I actually bought we'll read through the letter, but that's the background of it. But because I was put in prison in 2013 in Greece, the transfer never happened. And I told Cedric when he was visiting me, look, you must get this house put into Catherine's name, blah blah blah, and all the rest of it. And then again in April 2014, when I mentioned it in an email that you read out on a previous show before the email he sent to Matthew Clark saying that I must be stopped. Please get Catherine Evans' house secured at Svinica. And he never did any of that. And then it's all,
why has he wrote this email though?
Well, why did he write to Jeff Brown about Zakros? Because then I don't know what he wants to do. He's already jailed me, given me 28 years of sentencing in the UK. And what he said to Jeff was absolute nonsense about Zakros. What he said to Pat Brownette about Zakros was absolute nonsense. What he said to Matthew Clark about Bally was absolute nonsense. And so there's a mental problem here.
So is
he's dealing with.
Is he doing digging on you? Is this what this is about?
Well, let's read through it, and we'll probably.
Well, we're not going to have enough time. We'll have to do it in the second half. But I just want to get the context of so people understand that. I'll read the email off in the second element. But what's he trying to pursue you yet again, or?
Well, he's got, we've spoken about his conditions and obsessive behaviour. This is obsessive behaviour. Regardless, if I'd have done 20 years and I came out, he'd have probably said, "Oh, I'll find another way to get him back in," which becomes back to the morbid jealousy. And the plea is, really, this lady is ringing me up in tears. She's nearly 80 years old. She's been accused of money laundering with me. She's lost a villa here that's got a value now of about 400,000 that she's paid 160,000 for, or whatever it was back in the day, to how Jason and me did the deal. Now, I've got evidence of the payment going from me to Jason's Crete bank account of 73,000, which was the white amount of the contract. So again, just like Zakros, just like Placius Palace, all these 19 counts that he invented, or 18 because there was one before, he's concocted.
The point being, what is these sort of emails? Are they normal coming from him, or is it all just started up again since you've been doing these radio shows?
No, he occasionally does. He does do them, and I think Jeremy Moores, who's doing the appeal, contacted him last February, and he says, "I don't want to help. Ralph still owes me money." Well, his money, he mentions it again in here. Ralph still owes me money. It was repaid by Ryan Downs, my POCA lawyer, to his lawyer, a guy called Harrison at Mills and Co in Leeds. They spoke in January 2017, and it was settled. So. It's just saying, "Oh no, Ralph still owes me money." 163,000 euros that was in a Swiss bank account was allocated by my POCA lawyer and through the POCA in West Yorkshire Police people as being allocated to Cedric. So I don't owe him any money. And bear in mind, he's told Pat Brownette that there was no money in Zakros. So. Everybody has lost an awful lot of money because of this stupidity of Cedric. And this lady's lost, like I say, a villa that's worth 400,000. I'm in community. I know exactly what's happened with this now because I've been to see the people. I've spoken to the estate agents, and maybe when we do the letter, I'll try and explain it. So she's accusing of Catherine of committing crimes with me. The poor lady has lost her villa down to Cedric's stupidity. If he'd have just done as I said when I was in prison here and gone with Declan and put it into her name, this would have finished in March 2013, and he was on side then. So there was no reason why he shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll unpack this because there's quite a few questions here I've got running through my mind. We need to go to a break. Ralph, would you like to introduce your first song?
Yes, Charlie Daniels, "The Devil Goes Down to Georgia." But in this case, it seems like the Devils, Stephen Thomas and Cedric Christie, came to Crete.
I'm pleased you still got a sense of humour. All right, let's play this now.
Down to Georgia, he was looking for a soul to steal. He was in a bind because he was way behind and he was willing to make a deal. When he came across this young man sawing on a fiddle and playing it hot, and the devil jumped up on a hickory stump and said, "Boy, let me tell you what. I guess you didn't know it, but I'm a fiddle player too. And if you'd care to take a dare, I'll make a bet with you. Now you play pretty good fiddle, boy, but give the devil his due. I bet a fiddle of gold against your soul because I think I'm better than you." The boy said, "My name's Johnny, and it might be a sin, but I'll take your bet and you're gonna regret, cause I'm the best as ever been. Johnny, rosin up your bow and play your fiddle hard, cause hell's broke loose in Georgia and the devil deals the cards. And if you win, you get this shiny fiddle made of gold, but if you lose, the devil gets your soul." opened up his case and he said, I'll start this show. And fire flew from his fingertips as he rosined up his bow. And he pulled the bow across the strings and it made an evil hiss. And then a band of demons joined in and it sounded something like this. When the devil finished, Johnny said, well, you're pretty good, old son, but sit down in that chair right there and let me show you how it's done. Fire on the mountain, run, boys, run. The devil's in the house of the rising sun. Chicken in the bread pan, picking out dough. Granny, does your dog bite? No child knows. The devil bowed his head because he knew that he'd been beat, and he laid that golden fiddle on the ground at Johnny's feet. Johnny said, devil, just come on back if you ever want to try again. I done told you once, you son of a bitch, I'm the best there's ever been. He played Fire on the Mountain, run, boys, run. Devil's in the house of the rising sun. The chicken in the bread pan, I'm picking out dough. Granny, will your dog bite? No child knows.
Okay, we are back. Let's go through this email. This is from Cedric. It's his usual email address. We've gone through documents that he sent from years ago, so we know it's his account. And I'm guessing there's some identifiers in there that Ralph would have picked off if it wasn't. Okay, I'm perplexed by this still, even now, of what he's trying to achieve in this email. It says, hi, doesn't even say the person's name.
Can you just say the date of it, Gladys, and the time?
Yeah, I will do. Yeah, okay. Oh, wow. Okay, the time's quite important, actually. Thursday, 22nd of January, 26, and the time is, this is actually important bit, actually, I guess, is 03:25:28. So 3:30 in the morning, he's sending this email.
No, it says PM, actually, doesn't it?
It does say PM, but it says 03. Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. All right, fine.
Finish meantime. Yeah.
Okay. So here we go. Okay, hi doesn't say the person's name, just says hi. When was the last time Cedric spoke to this person? To the best of your knowledge?
I don't think he ever has.
Well, just randomly. How did he get the email address then?
Because there was, I had to explain to him 2 years ago that everything was genuine about it. But you know, it's like we've explained Zakros is genuine, every Bal is genuine and what have you. And he's the one that's put any, you know, we spoke about that dodgy contract that didn't have a Greek copy for when that he showed to Matthew Clark and Pat Brownette in April 2014. That was meant to have had the translation date the same of the contract date. So it was obviously a forgery that he probably concocted. So we know what he's capable of because he's actually admitted it in his own confession. So, you know, so there's no issue with this house. I know how to deal with it. I know it's taking a long time and I feel very, very sorry for Catherine, but I will get there. But I don't think he's had any direct contact with them at all, other than this email and maybe a previous email.
Okay. So she's lost out here herself, quite substantially.
Yeah. Yes, she has.
And do you think you can recover the situation?
Well, I think I will do with other means, because obviously any losses is not down to me and it's not down to her. Uh, so and she's part of a Blackest Palace shareholder. We're back to I'll cover we've got this lawsuit against West Yorkshire Police to sort out. We've got my appeal to sort out, but yes, I'm hoping everybody will get sorted out, and rightfully so, because there's no doubt about it now who the two culprits are in this, and there were two big elephants that weren't in the room at Bradford Crown Court: Stephen Thomas and Cedric Christie.
Yeah. Yeah, your solicitor's still not got back to me, by the way.
Right. Well, we've got that link, haven't we? So we'll chase him up today.
Okay. I'm wondering if you can help me. So he's not looking to help her, help me. I'm a former police officer from England with criminal investigation experience. Stitching up people by the sounds of it. A woman in England called Catherine Freeman has suggested to me on several occasions that she had paid money to a cousin of mine, Jason Stamos, for the purchase of a villa you now appear to own. Let's talk about that bit then. Let's talk about the villa. Is the villa in anybody's name? Who owns it? Is it in abeyance? Let's talk about these parties. Who's Catherine and who's Jason?
Right, well, okay. The woman in England called Catherine Freeman, it's not the correct name. She's been Catherine Evans since 2014. He knows this. He's spelt her name wrong before, and she's corrected him, and has suggested to me on several occasions that she has paid money to a cousin of mine, Jason Stamos. She's never paid any money ever to Jason Stamos. It's just Jason Stamos is Cedric and my cousins. So the only person that's paid money to Jason Stamos was me, which was 73,000 by check that I paid from my Crete bank into Jason's Crete bank, the 27th or the 28th of October 2008, exactly the same time or just after Cedric had his money back from Zakros, from Mario Turcioni and me. So that statement's incorrect there. Catherine did pay 20,000 euros in January 2013 when Jason was with me to the lawyer Nikos Sadakis for the taxes and for his legal fees to transfer this villa. At that time was valued at about 200,000 euros. The people that have bought it now, it's gone into their name. They spent a lot of money on it, and the villa is now worth, well, if I said a million, it'd be more than that.
So when you mentioned that you could help her out, how could you help it if it's in someone else's name now?
Well, just get to the facts about what actually happened. The people that have actually bought it are not at fault. Perhaps shall we read a little bit more out of this, and then we'll come to how I can do that at the end of the.
All right, I'll go with the flow. Jason lives on Crete. Does he live in Crete?
Yep, he lives within 3 kilometres of this villa.
Okay, and denies the allegations of Catherine. I mean,
as I said, there's nothing to deny, because I know that Jason hasn't had any money from Catherine. Catherine knows she hasn't given any money to Jason, so it's just nonsense.
So she's basically, you're in contact with Catherine, and she's actually said this. When did she last say that she gave no money to Jason, just out of interest?
Well, it just didn't happen. So she's got no reason to give Jason any money. It was me that paid Jason money on the 28th of October 2008, that he would have given to the person that was selling it, which was a Dutch lady. And we also paid some cash on top of it because of the systems here where we have the black money and the contract title. So, if you were to ask Catherine, I mean, Catherine got this email and she was nearly in tears. She's nearly an 80-year-old lady, and a very, very close friend of the family, so it's absolutely, well, I think she's going to report it to Cheshire Police with her daughter, because it's some sort of harassment. So we just keep reading on a bit more, or?
Yeah, I know you're nudging me. I think it's more likely that Catherine had illegal property dealings in Crete with my brother Ralph Christie. What does he mean by that?
well, he's accusing her of being a criminal with me.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
And
no,
this
I know,
lady,
I understand about a co-conspirator, but is there any foundation to, not so much that, I mean, how many business dealings did she have with you?
well, she was in Plakia's Palace. Uh, she helped me invest when we made some money sending some olive oil to Kazakhstan. I don't think she was involved in Zakros. Uh,
So she was an
and this
investor,
village,
basically.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's like friends with friends, but you know,
Was she like a silent investor, or did she have any like decision-making powers or
yes,
whatever?
no, no, just a side effect. But she was a lady that Cedric went to see in April 2014, and she told Cedric to sling his hooks. No, I'm perfectly happy with Ralph. He's trustworthy, and all the rest of it. You know, you've got to bear in mind we're talking about the defence witnesses that Cedric turned prosecution, we spoke about in previous show. He still went to probably another 11 other people, tried to convince them, and they just said, no, we're not going against Ralph, we'll fully support him.
This is where it gets interesting, actually. Moving on, Ralph is a convicted criminal. She would know this because loss of contact and all that sort of jazz. And has served a jail term in the UK for fraud in relation to crimes involving alleged investments in Crete. Now let me just talk about the context of this. This paints a picture to me in that short sentence there. And apparently, this is a police officer. Well, he was a police officer, but what I mean is, someone quite high level as well. He says here the he says here alleged investments, yet you've been convicted, so it's no longer alleged. The assumption is, well, the proposition in thereafter is that you've been convicted in a court of law, so you're no longer alleged. And it's just the verbiage that he uses here, yeah? So this here demonstrates to me is that this is about you.
Yeah, yeah. Everything's about me, isn't it? The court case was about him getting me into jail, with his own lies.
Really not a healthy brotherly relationship whatsoever.
No, and he did a jail term in the UK. He hasn't mentioned that I was fully exonerated in Crete, in Greece, in 2013 that he helped me with. And because I got exonerated, he suddenly realised, well, it started with me in 2008. It's going to come back to me now. So to stop me going to jail, I'll put him in jail. And he's not even bothered about it. And he's still trying to do the same thing now in 2026.
I've just read the next paragraph. Jeez. Okay. One thing you've maintained, just before I talk about this paragraph, you've maintained a modest life whilst being in Crete, right?
Yeah.
All right. You're an international money launderer, apparently. Okay. My own fact-finding endeavors. Why is he even looking into his own brother? My own fact-finding endeavors lead me to believe he, as in you, is an international money launderer. Are you known by the FBI, the CIA, the feds?
I was fully exonerated in Crete, in Greece, in 2013 for fraud and money laundering. I was fully exonerated in Bradford, in England, in 2013 for fraud and money laundering. What I was convicted of was a law that came in the UK only in late 2007, which was fraud by misrepresentation. Now, anybody can say there's no fraud by misrepresentation because it's a complete different system of how we do business over here. And they just concocted that UK law up to get me convicted. It doesn't exist in outer Europe, fraud by misrepresentation as a crime. So I've just been stitched up by the convictions. And the indictments were wrong as well. We've spoken about the Howard Tennants. Well, the judge overturned that at my pocket hearing because he knew it had been settled with Howard Tennants through the Queen's bench order and through the CEO. So, this is, it might seem a long time to do the appeal. And it's like, this is a great, great challenge at all this, and it's gone on for years. And things like this on the radio program, they only prove that I'm, speaking the truth. So, led me to believe he is an international money launderer. Well, one email he sent in 2020 said I'm an international money launderer with Nikos Sodakis, and I'm a small cog in a criminal organisation. Complete nonsense. That was 2020. in November last year, that we can probably go through at another time in the show, is he sent an email out to my lawyer saying that I was in cahoots with West Yorkshire Police, and West Yorkshire Police were criminals with me. So it's delusional. Totally delusional.
He appears to me as someone that suffers from distortions, paranoia as well.
Yeah, and he's also probably got, he knows he can't be convicted because he's probably got an indemnity by West Yorkshire Police for you nail Ralph and we won't touch you. And this is, it's absolutely crazy. We've mentioned all the officers, haven't we? That the top officers that have covered it up, like Bottomley, the Chief Constable of Lancashire, Rowley. It's at the highest level of cover. They all know.
But the thing is, what I don't understand, right, go back to Stephen Thomas's ex-wife, is how nobody's questioned that document that got issued to her. Well, it's extraordinary. I don't think it's even legal.
Of course, and Chris Tirani and Grattage knew about it at the trial. And I'm saying, well, why aren't we saying anything about Stephen Thomas? It's a family court matter. We're not allowed to bring it into a Crown Court matter, even though he's a rapist and he's battered his kids.
Okay, it goes on to say, I have evidence to support my view. He actually ripped me off too. I mean, that's not even proper language, is it? He ripped me off too. And he said his own brother. Right. Sorry, go on.
Well, I'm just saying, I didn't rip him off. I said it was paid back through poker. So it's just another lie.
Yeah. In 2020, I suggested to Catherine that she contacted can you pronounce that surname?
Distron Hugel.
That's it, yeah. Through Facebook to establish who the present owners, open brackets, you, I presume, close brackets, purchased the property from. I don't know if Catherine did contact you as a result. I doubt it. I do know that Catherine and my brother made a false allegation against me about the sum of £10,000 shortly after I made my suggestion. Go on, talk through that chronology as best as you can understand.
Okay, so I don't know if Catherine did contact them. Well, I think she did write to them and what have you. I went round to see the people with my own son Kenton to ask them how they managed to purchase the property, and because it belonged to Catherine, and they were quite reasonable about it. And I had 2 or 3 visits, and then they just said, "Look, we're fed up with this. Do you mind not coming back again?" And I did some more investigations, and what actually happened was there was a power of attorney that was in Jason's name, I think from 2003, from the seller, who was a Dutch lady. And this is when I paid Jason in October 2008 the 73,000 through a check through my bank account. Then for me to have an interest in the property and to buy Jason out. And then when Catherine came over in 2013, the power of attorney that was in Jason's name was transferred into Catherine's name. So the lawyer Nikos Sadakis can transfer the property then into Catherine's name without her having to come backwards and forwards from the UK, because it's a power of attorney. But what actually happened when I spoke to the couple that had the house, I was in prison in the UK, and they were approached by the estate agent in Placius, and the estate agent says, "Look, you can buy this house off me," and I think they only paid 100,000 for it at that stage, which is a ridiculously low amount of money. And what the estate agent did, he actually flew to Holland himself, met the lady that was quite ill at the time, and changed the power of attorney so it went to him, bypassing Jason's power of attorney from 2003, Catherine's power of attorney from 2013, and just managed to sell the house himself to the people that are in there now. So the people that are in there unwittingly, they bought the house with no idea that actually it belonged to Catherine.
That's funny enough. That does happen in the UK as well. So yeah, I can believe that. Where basically people can sell property unwittingly, not even to the person that actually owns it. It's crazy.
Yeah, but as soon as I'm put in prison, I even told my other brother Garth, I said, "Look, we've got to get this house secured. This is in February 2013. It should have taken about 2 months maximum to go into Catherine's name. So if I hadn't been in jail because of the Starmer letter, Catherine would have got her house and it would have still owned it today.
It's like the House of Cards, isn't it? This situation.
Well, who needs a brother like this that's just ruining all the good deals that I'm doing for people? The Plus Market, the Blackest Palace Hotel, Zakros, building of other people's villas. It's not just this. There's the Keir land that's been lost because of Cedric allowing Alan Thompson to come to court. There's only, at the end of the day, there's only really two big losses, and that's what Nikos Dastakis, the lawyer, having 485,000 of my client's funds, and Alan Thompson taking the 570,000 that he receipted for the Keir land in February 2008. A lot of the other stuff I'm managing to slowly sort out.
Yeah. Okay, so my suspicion is that Ralph and Catherine are both being untruthful about Jason's involvement with AM. They say they reported Jason to Crete Police. What a name that is. But that's probably untrue. This was several years ago. Oh, I see what he's saying here. Okay, let me carry on. I think I'll see what he's saying. And if it were true, I expect the police would have spoken to you directly about it. So what he's saying is you're partied with the new owners. You've set up some sort of deal or something. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, it's saying that my suspicion is that Ralph and Catherine are both being untruthful about Jason's involvement with Anthem who haven't been untruthful at all about it. And Jason hasn't been untruthful. Jason can't deny he hasn't had the money because he's had the check into his bank account. So I don't know what Jason and Cedric have said when they've had their meetings. Bear in mind that Cedric turned up with his ex-copper mate, his name was Andrew Watts, in January 2013 and said, look, can you come with us to Zakros, Jason, early one morning? We've got to go and find out some information about Ralph. And Jason went along and he said all the way there, they were all about no money in Zakros and all the rest of it. And Jason knew that the money was there because he'd put it there himself, and back in 2008, he was working with me on that site. So I don't know. He's just gone to Jason, who had worked for the company and had worked for me, Jason was probably more perplexed. So I don't even believe what he's writing here about Jason. And we didn't report Jason to the Crete Police. Why would we? Because I've been to speak to the people there, and when I spoke to Jason about it, it was him that told me that the estate agent had been to Holland to change the power of attorneys. And I went to see the estate agent, and he actually backed that up and saying that's what happened. Yeah. So it's all nonsense.
Okay. You've probably answered this already, but he goes on to say, are you able to help me with this matter? What does he want help with? And what's the end game here in terms of helping?
He's probably wanting Catherine arresting and me rearresting for possibly sort of a fraud on this property where there is no fraud. He's desperate to, for some reason, he's sick, isn't he? Who wants to put their own brother in prison? Especially when you're a criminal himself. But
yeah, I mean, this is bizarre.
Yeah, are you able to help with this matter? I mean, the people...
He's doing his own private investigation, basically, saying,
Exactly what he did with Declan in April 2014 and concocted the 18 counts. It's factual. And then then Gractage, and Tirani have protected him and not introduced any of the stuff that Miriam was going to introduce. Tirani said to me 4 days into the trial, I was convicted of embezzlement in Crete. It's a complete lie. I was fully exonerated. And I said, I wasn't. And, I used to have big fights with Tirani, but at the end of the day, what do? I should have sacked my team. Well, the trial shouldn't have started because of Cedric's involvement that Miriam explained in the email we spoke last week. So,
Okay. He goes on to say, do you know whom you purchased the property and the date? I mean, is he acting as prime investigator or does he just wants to get back in jail? I mean, that's ridiculous if that's the case. Because he's got his contacts in the police. If there's a crime, then you can just report it to them, let them do their job.
Even if you're into crime, you can report it, can't you? And they'll do the job. That's what happened at Bradford Crown Court.
But no, what I mean is, it's very peculiar, not least obviously because he's your brother, but it's, why would he be doing this, making inquiries, in relation to yourself? It makes no sense to me. He's hurt
Yeah,
you
well,
already. What, he wants to hurt you more?
well, yeah. I don't know if he listens to the program. If he certainly should be, and well, he needs arresting. Any normal look at what he's confessed to in 2021, putting innocent people in prison.
Yeah. Same
Fabricating
email
evidence.
address as well. Same email address.
That Operation Fern that was connected with Simon Morris, that James Stunt, who's just been exonerated about 9 months ago, was connected to Eccleston. They were involved in Operation Fern. Cedric was kicked off it because D.I. Taylor and Sir Norman Bettison at that time, Ingrid Lee and Francis Norton all found it out that he was bent. Well, that he shouldn't even he was diagnosed as mentally sick in April 2009 and put on half pay by the chief constable, Sir Norman Bettison. What they've relied on this sort of crap that's been written here just last week is exactly what the CPS and West Yorkshire Police relied on, the same crap he came back to tell people in April 2014.
Yeah. Did a solicitor represent you or your purchase? If so, are you able to share the name and contact details of the solicitor? I mean, it's a good question, but what? Well, anyway, you've answered the question anyway. This is bizarre. Do you know the solicitor called? Again, I can't pronounce all these names.
Nikolodakis.
Yeah. You say it so eloquently, I can't. Who had offices in Chennai?
Yeah,
He is also corrupt. Is he corrupt?
Brothers, this is if we go back to the Matthew Clark letter, where Cedric says West Yorkshire Police don't have a clue, so they're relying on Declan and me.
Yeah.
He actually puts in that email to Matthew on the 12th of April 2014 that don't trust Nikos Nichosadakis. He's been exposed by me as being corrupt. That was his words. Now, Cedric used Nikos Nichosadakis as a prosecution witness against me at Bradford.
Mm-hmm.
And he was responsible probably for the Howard Tennant's conviction. So even though Cedric knows he's corrupt in April 2014, Tayyab Ali knows he's corrupt. Stephen Grattage knew he was corrupt because they came over themselves in 2013. Dr. Femis Sophos knew that he was corrupt. But the prosecution have gone and used him as a prosecution witness at Bradford. So it just makes him look even more stupid, doesn't it?
Right. He goes on to say Catherine seems to be at Rouse Beck and Call.
Oh, wait a minute. You just missed
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'll copy in Catherine so that everything can be transparent. 2 email addresses above. I don't know who are these people.
She's copied Catherine in.
Yeah.
So she's gone obviously to the people that have the villa now, and so she says he's wanting to be transparent, so not speaking to them behind the back without Catherine knowing. So Catherine gets this email, and of course I've had this. She's ringing me up in tears, about it. So the 2 email addresses, they said it won't have been sure which was her email address. So he's copied the 2 email addresses and thinking it's the same person, and in fact it was. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Catherine seems to be at Rouse Beck and Call. She has even produced false minutes of a meeting she attended on behalf of my brother. Even calls you my brother. I mean, me, to be honest, I don't want to puke if someone wrote that to me. In your situation, whilst he was detained in prison in Chennai, apparently with the intention of producing the false minutes in legal proceedings.
Right. Okay. Let me explain this because when Cedric gave a shareholders meeting on the 21st of April 2013, when I was retained in prison in Hanya because of the Keir Starmer letter. So he's gone there to explain to the people about why I'm in prison, but I'm not a crook. Everything's above board. Ralph will be fully exonerated in Greece because there's no crimes, and Catherine's just gone along and taken some notes quite innocently, what have you, and produced these notes. Well, I haven't asked her to produce them because I'm still in a prison. And I don't think I saw the notes until 2018 or 2019, 5 years after they were written. So anyway, maybe a year ago now, Cedric had recorded this meeting that nobody actually knew he'd recorded. So she's asking Catherine to listen to the recording to go through the notes. Now, there might be some little discrepancies in there because she's just doing it freehand, listening to what he said. But because it's not word to word exactly right, he's now accusing her of committing fraud with me. Now, Cedric should have disclosed the recording of that meeting, along with all the other disclosure from his investigations into Crete, to Chris Tarani and to ITN solicitors, Taya Valley, before the trial. But he didn't. So he's coming out with stuff now with that dodgy contract that he forged in he forged that in 2014. He came out with that in 2020. Now he's come out with a secret recording. I mean, he's got other stuff that he'll probably bring out unless somebody stops him. That should have all been disclosed before a Crown Court trial started. So, it's not right. I mean, when you think about there's lots of problems, isn't there, with police officers? That there's like Wayne Cousins that was raping the women and all the rest of it. He's gone to jail for life, and colleagues that he worked with knew that he was doing that. Colleagues of Wayne Cousins murdered the lady in London, didn't he? It was David Carrick that was a rapist. Well, they're working alongside colleagues that know what they're doing, and they don't even bother to arrest him. Just like Cedric's working with all these other colleagues, he knows what they've done. Cedric told me that there's a commander in Bradford that I knew, and was a friend of Cedric's, DCI Snow, was having an affair with the Assistant Chief Constable Francis Norton, who was investigating.
Where did he record this meeting? Just out of interest, where did he make the recording? What country?
It was at the Timogen restaurant in Huddersfield on the 21st of April 2013, and that's a restaurant's owned by a shareholder called David Johnson.
Yeah, because I've just in the UK you can record without other people's knowledge, but in Crete you can't. It's illegal.
We've got 3 recordings of people he has recorded in Crete, and you're quite right, it is illegal. And that's exactly why Chris Tarani said he wouldn't bring them into the trial. Well, they should have brought them into the trial because Cedric could face arrest. So that's basically the end of the letter, isn't there? There's just one last... I
want to go on this one, right, as well. I want to... He says here, nasty business, I know, but crooks have no scruples. Now, I want to big up the crooks in some respects, because most people that commit fraud, for example, and other crimes are actually quite entrepreneurial, intelligent people. You've got your brother who is a former police officer. I'm not advocating crime, by the way, definitely not. I'm not saying that, but I do a lot of discussion groups with ex-offenders and stuff like that. And these are clever people, very clever people, masterful, in fact. There's some nasty, nasty people as well. But he's calling these people have no scruples. He's the one that basically put himself in a position as a police officer and actually decided, in order to possibly get, I can only account on this basis, get his charges up in order to pursue his career, and he almost got there in the end, was to basically put people in jail for crimes they didn't commit. That is someone that has no scruples, in my opinion. This email is by someone that has no scruples, because what is he doing? What is he actually doing? Apart from, as you say, he's trying to get you back in jail. But his credibility is completely diminished by his own email.
Yeah, well, Keir Starmer, or whoever it was, Alison Saunders after, has given him complete immunity not to be prosecuted. So it's just playing the game. It's like Jimmy Savile was committing more crimes, even though everybody knew he was a criminal. So Cedric now is still I might as well keep going at our kid and all the rest of it. Well, he needs to be stopped. Somebody's got to do something about it.
It's the most bizarre situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bizarre. We need to go to a break. Would you like to introduce your next song?
You caught me off guard there.
Okay.
Let me just find where I wrote my songs.
It can't be any worse. I was doing an interview the other day, yeah, and the person answered a mobile phone call.
Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash.
Won't Stand Down. One of your favourite songs.
Okay, yeah, I love that one.
I won't back down into it, and of course.
Yep, no, I love it. I enjoy it, and it's very important and very relevant as well as per normal. Okay, we'll be back shortly.
Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down. You can stand me up at the gates of hell, but I won't back down. Gonna stand my ground, won't be turned around. And I'll keep this world from dragging me down. Gonna stand my ground, and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I will stand my ground, and I won't back down. Well, I know what's right. I got just one life in a world that keeps on pushing me around, but I stand my ground, and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I will stand my ground, and I won't back down. No, I won't back down.
Dreamcatcher Radio.
Dreamcatcher Radio is about capturing and creating dreams through music, chat, and debate. Empowering expression, enriching society. A go-to place for unsigned musical talent. A radio station which listens to its audience. Free speech, vibrant, engaging. Stream worldwide 24/7. Events, competitions, promotions. Always keen to have a listening ear. Contact us. hello@dreamcatcherradio.com.
Dreamcatcher Radio.
Okay, we are back. We're going to take a slightly different direction. Ralph and I were talking in the break, and we've got so much more to talk about Ralph's case. But, that's his case. But I want to talk about the bigger picture here. I was at a meeting recently with the Association for Prisoners Maintaining Innocence, and it's really fascinating. And I asked Ralph, I said, look, can we talk about this and just have your thoughts and feelings about what this short paper has been written by the chairperson, Danny Bars, who's also been to prison as well. Okay, I'm going to start this off. Ralph, you're on the back foot because you've not seen this. I just want to talk through it because I find it really fascinating.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just going to read it verbatim. The justice system's proposal to restrict jury trials. Very quickly, what do you think about jury trials?
Well, I think certain cases, jury trials are a good idea, uh, but certainly not for high-level fraud or so-called fraud, because my trial went on for 8 weeks. On certain occasions, even when I was in the witness box, some of the jurors were fast asleep.
Yeah.
You know,
Quite interestingly, Danny, who's the author of this, was basically convicted of a financial fraud. He was accused of financial fraud along with his son. Anyway, the Justice Secretary proposal to restrict jury trials to only the most serious offences has sparked fierce debate. To be honest, in all honesty, I think the justice system in itself is completely flawed. But I don't think it is even fierce debate. I think it's basically just utters, in my opinion. Ministers say it will help clear the backlog. I don't believe that. Lawyers say it's an attack on the rights of a fair trial. I don't believe that. Beneath that argument lies a deeper truth, which is what I start believing in. Familiar to many readers, this is an article that was published in the Inside Times, which is the prison newspaper. The jury system is far from perfect, and too many people are paying the price for its failures. For decades, the jury system has been treated as sacred. Politicians, judges, commentators often claim it's the gold standard of the justice system. Now, without laughing, what do you say about that?
well, the reason the justice system in the UK is on its knees and not working is simply down to corrupt CPS and corrupt policemen. And I mean, if you take exchange chambers in Leeds that were apparently meant to defend me at trial, the list of barristers and QCs or key cases as they are now, even judges that come out of that place, it's just unbelievable they're allowed to go prosecution and go defense, because at the end of the day, we spoke about Stephen Grattage on my case. He actually prosecuted a guy called David Cockshott for some sexual crimes before my trial, which I didn't know. Now, I knew Dave Cockshott because he was a friend of Richard Holmes. Dave Cockshott actually was exchanging euros in Monaco with Stephen Thomas when we did the deal with Alan Thompson for the Hockley count that I didn't get charged with. Stephen Grattage actually was somebody that was involved in my case and was involved with Stephen Thomas, exchanging hundreds of thousands of euros through Monaco into sterling and through David Cockshott's account. Well, this should have raised a flag with Stephen Grattage, but it did, but he just kept it quiet. So it's not really what's wrong with the jury or what's not. At the end of the day, you just want justice and you want people to be honest. And, that includes the judge. Well, the judge knew Cedric, had given her a commendation, so this is where the problems are. This is where you get miscarriages of justice. Look at Lucy Leckby. It's quite obvious that they've wheeled in experts that say the right thing that the prosecution want to hear. I mean, Lucy Leckby was defended by Benjamin Myers. Where does Benjamin Myers come from? He comes out of exchange chambers in Leeds, the same ones as mine, and he's been defending her for umpteen weeks. And it's all these experts, that they're so-called experts, that say the right things that the CPS bring in. If anyone doesn't say the right thing, they won't bring them in. But it's about the truth, brothers. It's about the truth. People should tell the truth, but they don't.
Yeah, on that note, I personally believe the jury system is flawed, only because of human nature. I believe it's flawed. Dismissing failings means accepting that innocent people being in prison is simply how the system works. How powerful is that? It's just basically collateral damage. It's bound to happen, and apparently based on what the CCRC says, the Criminal Case Review Commission, approximately 10% of people in prison have been wrongly convicted.
No, 10% are known to be innocent. 20%
right.
are innocent.
Yeah,
So
well, that's what I was going to go on to say, but that's supported by government, right? So they're actually agreeing with that, yeah. But it's understood that approximately 20% are actually wrongly convicted. Now, this is the bit that I think will interest you. In our adversarial system, the prosecution builds a narrative of guilt and presents the defendant in a least favourable light. Now, I always believed, in my naivety, that the presumption of innocence was always there. But I actually believe it actually isn't, because I've never been on a member of jury, but if you think about it logically, is that you're in court to try and convict as a member of the jury, and just make sure it all stacks up, and and that's basically it. So the presumption is you're guilty. Let's just make sure it fits.
yeah.
And I never thought about it like that. Never. Defense. Okay. The defense then tries to undo that damage, which is what I've just said. Is that you walk into court thinking the guy's guilty, or he, she, or indifferent, whatever the pronouns are nowadays. What do you think about that? What? Because you've been through a trial. Is that what you felt?
Well, I knew I was innocent, totally innocent. So I didn't expect to go back to a city where I've been running legitimate businesses for 25 years and chambers of commerce, giving lectures at the university, many friends that were good businessmen in the city of Bradford. I just thought, well, okay, I'll go back there. I'll have a fair trial. I'll be acquitted and get on with my business. But the insider dealing that goes on is quite staggering. All Andrew West has got to say to Chris Tirani halfway through my trial, well, there's a big trial I'm dealing with in Newcastle next September. Will you stand prosecution for me? And Chris Tirani say, oh yeah, me and Grattage will come and do that. And so they're meant to be defending me against Andrew West, who we know has told a pack of lies from start to finish, to get me remanded in Greece, get me remanded in the UK. And now he's bringing in this lawyer from with Cedric from Nikos Lykosidakis that we know to be corrupt. So obviously, like I said, I was the only one that didn't know the script. Everybody else in there knew the script. And the idea of not allowing me to have my defence witnesses is staggering. You've got a judge there as well that says he don't know anything about the Greek trial. He knocked off 240 days off my sentence because I was in prison in Greece. What was I in prison in Greece for? I could have been in prison for rape or for something else and been acquitted. If it wasn't connected to Operation Langan and the Keir Starmer letter, he wouldn't have knocked it off.
That's always perplexes me, Ralph, is where they abandon these issues and say, okay, let's just move on. It really does. I've witnessed it myself. Yeah. Okay, it goes on to say somewhere between these two performances, he doesn't say anything. He says performances, and you read into that what you like, but I've got the gist of it. The search for truth can be lost, which is so true. Prosecutors have an advantage, which is true. They don't face the same obligations as a defendant to tell the whole truth, and they choose, they frame the evidence. Barristers on both sides know they must maintain good relations within the legal profession, which is very, very true, which makes open criticism of each other less likely, even when the tactics become questionable. One thing I will say on this bit here, and you laughed, so you're going to probably comment on that. I believe the best litigation is actually done outside court, not in court. And I believe it's important that barristers talk to each other and understand what's actually going on. You laughed, Ralph. What do you laugh about there?
Well, let's talk about. There's a very, very close relationship between ITN solicitors and Opus Law that are in Bradford. They had some relationship. I don't know exactly what it was. But when I was remanded Christmas 2013, ITM were based in London, so they just contacted a local lawyer to come and see me. And who do you think they sent? They sent a lawyer, Ben Jones, from Opus Law, to defend me against being jailed. Well, I couldn't accept Ben Jones because he's Stephen Thomas's lawyer. You know, yeah, that's absolutely crazy. And he says, well, we'll get you out and all the rest of it. No, you know, and I ring up Tayyab Ali and say, look, you just sent me Opus Law. Oh, we have a connection with Opus Law. Yeah, but don't you remember he was part of the Opus Law were defending Stephen Thomas at the Greek trial? Oh, yes, okay. So, you know, crazy. Anyway, I ended up defending myself because they'd missed up between Matthew Clark and Benedict Clark, and I managed to get out before they remanded me again 2 weeks later. So the connection there is incredible. We go back to the exchange chambers. There's just been Operation Larkshot in Leeds Crown Court, where 4 people were sentenced. Only one of them turned up, Daniel, forgotten his surname. Now he's been convicted and given 10.5 years in jail. The other 3 didn't turn up and were sentenced. James Stunt, who we know was connected to Simon Morris and Cedric at some point, was found not guilty, and he was the one connected to Eccleston. Now, who defended Daniel was, again, Benjamin Myers, and he got found guilty, just like Lucy Leckby got found guilty. Who was the solicitor defending Daniel? It was Jones again, you know. So the Opus Law connection and exchange chambers, where my lawyers come from, is very strong. Opus Law and Pepperbridge Basra in Bradford are defending Stephen Thomas in his divorce against Jane Thomas, where he's admitted all these crimes to the judge. Who's defending him is what was her name? Koza Hussain, who's a senior partner there. And so she knows that Stephen Thomas is a rapist. Ben Jones knows that Stephen Thomas is a rapist. And what do? They keep him as far away as possible from my Crown Court trial, even though he's started it with saying I was embezzling him of money that he'd stolen from his wife. So,
very incestuous, say, Ralph. Very incestuous.
Yeah.
Okay, let's carry on. I knew this would excite you because it's very relevant. The structural problems make things worse. The pool of people allowed to serve on juries has grown, meaning serving police officers and other with potential conflicts, as you've just talked about, may sit in judgment. Jurors are also exposed to social media, even when told not to look anything up. Long before a trial begins, the media often portrays the accused as guilty. The pressures seep into the jury room, whether the court acknowledge it or not. Let me carry on or not. But perhaps the biggest flaw in the lack of transparency, juries' deliberations are in secret. Jurors do not have to explain their reasoning. A person can be sent to prison for decades without ever learning why 12 strangers reached the verdict they did. In every other area of public decision-making, reasons are always given. Yet in criminal justice, the area where liberty is at stake, the system accepts silence. What do you say,
Well, the juries are tickled, aren't they? Without a doubt. There was a Nola Bentham chart, which was part of mine, saying that she was a financial expert for West Yorkshire Police that had done this chart with Cedric, because they could only produce it from the bank statements I'd given Cedric from my Greek accounts and my HSBC account and my NatWester Bank and my wife Santander's bank account when he was on site, so he could see that everything was genuine. Well, once it changed size, of course, him and Nola Bentham, who was the expert, had produced this chart, and obviously Cedric's name wasn't on it, but Nola was there giving evidence that she had produced it, but she could have only got it from the stolen property from Cedric. And the jury asked for this chart if it could be made bigger, because they're finding it hard to understand when there's 12 of them. And they actually printed this chart off and put it on the wall inside the debating room where they're making their decisions. Now, the nonsense in that chart was, Ralph's bank account, Canary Wharf, worldwide currencies, destination unknown. Well, the destination was known because everything went to Crete, So they're just confusing a jury with more and more lies. And I told Grattis and to Ali to challenge this, but they didn't stop this chart being put on. I don't know how big it was. It could have been like 2 meters by 3 meters, dominating the room.
And in all realistic, going through this series review is I don't understand how this business operated with what you call black money or whatever you call it. And for a layperson to really understand, to get to the bottom of it, and people to say that this actually exists and that this is how business is done, it is very, very, so it's almost like you can. I do understand it now because I've researched it. But for people to suggest that transactions are done with a bit of this money this way, a bit of this money that way, and then the solicitor signs it all off.
Every land and every property in Greece has what they call a government tax value on it, and that is the money that you pay because that goes on the contract. So if the house is 300,000, the government tax price might be 100,000. The other 200,000 has to be paid in cash. You can actually get mortgages on houses that are much more than what the Greek government put the tax value on. So, but that's how it works here. But like you say, telling 12 members of the jury from Bradford, who I trust, I've got no reason to disbelieve them, but they're just completely bamboozled by stupid charts that my defence allowed to go in that just print nonsense about money going to unknown destinations. If it was going to some drug dealers in Mexico, or it was going to the corporate company and building houses for people.
Okay, let's carry on. The secrecy makes appeals extremely difficult. He's on about juries, obviously, without knowing how a verdict was reached, how errors be challenged. I mean, appeals in the UK, you can only challenge on errors in law, generally speaking, or new evidence or information.
Yeah, new evidence. Wrong indictment.
Yeah. Cases like that of Andrew Malkinson, that's a horrific case of injustice as well. Who spent
exactly. I think D.I. Taylor left Manchester Police because he was involved in that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who spent 17 years in prison before finally being cleared, showed that. I can't even understand how that case was even prosecuted. I can't. It's just horrific. Poor man, you only have one life, and he's lost 17 years in prison. Look at, I think about it. People don't understand that losing your liberty is a massive thing. And it's devastating on so many things. You lose friendships, relationships. In your case, Ralph, specifically, something you mentioned before, actually quite a lot of times, actually, is that you want yourself to have a clean character before you die.
Yeah, of course.
But moreover, it affects you basically being able to reestablish yourself. But I think now
Kenton was 9 years old when I was put into prison. I was still married at the time. It ruined my family life. I've been character assassinated. Totally humiliated. Lost my family life and what have you. Okay, I'm the sort of guy that's managed to deal with it and cope with it and bounce back. But this is, it's like I Won't Give Up, which is a song we've just played. And now you got Cedric sending rubbish out again a week ago that we've just been through. And he's the one that
actually does you a favor, Ralph. To be honest, that actually does you a favor in terms of putting your proposition forward that what happened wasn't correct. So whilst what he comes out with is just gibberish, in my opinion, it just shows he's got an unhealthy interest in you.
Yeah. Well, it's a condition. He's being diagnosed with morbid jealousy, and then West Yorkshire Police knew that, and they still allowed him to use all this fabricated evidence to put, he even chose the judge we've spoken about. Chris Tarani and Grattage have gone along with it. You know, the person that I was talking about that's just got 10.5 years, but meant to have been defended by the Exchange Chambers' Benjamin Myers, he's got a 15-year-old son, you know, and, you know, he's got to do for at least 5 years. He's got a POCA now here, amount of over 300,000. He's probably going to lose his house. And, you know, I know that the same police officers that nailed him are the same ones that did me. They've done exactly the same with the same people and put him in prison, you know, and he's in HMP Lindholm now. And it's down to the exact same people. Romano Senior was in charge of that case. David Charity was involved in it, you know, and this is, you know, I'm sat here, obviously I want justice for myself, but you're telling me about what you're talking about, which is very interesting. Lucy Letby, you know, there's no doubt about it. No doubt, but she's still sat in the prison cell. The Colin Norris that we mentioned, the West Yorkshire nurse.
Doesn't make any sense to me why she's still in prison.
And I think the governors really have a responsibility to say, well, look, I'm keeping somebody here. You know, we're looking at Gillian Levy's. You know, the governors really have got a responsibility because they're holding people unlawfully. The 10% that we know are innocent should be released straight away.
Well, everybody's got a duty along the way on the journey before you even get to prison. The problem is nobody stands up and says this is not right.
Well, yeah, and then you've got a prime minister that's put people in prison for doing next to nothing, and then you know he's committed cross-border crimes against me.
Yeah, Keir Starmer's got a lot to answer for, if I'm perfectly honest.
And
I'm just a lay person in saying that, but when you look at all the cases that he supported, and you look at even now, you know, with people sending tweets and stuff like that, and you know, it supports the narrative. And I don't like to be conspiracy theorist, but unfortunately, I live in the real world, and when you look at what's going on, even like 15-minute cities and stuff like that in Oxfordshire, where they're trialing shortly in the next few years, I kind of think that's control, even more control. You look at facial recognition in London and that sort of thing, is more control. And people may not connect the dots, but it's very, very relevant because what does it lead to? And I always go back to George Orwell, 1984, but you know, people may think I'm a tinfoil hat person, but I'm not. But I can see it happening. I just see it, you know, with the digital ID cards and that sort of stuff. And they're saying, okay, we're going to backtrack. Actually, we're not going to basically say it's going to be on everybody. It's going to be a voluntary scheme. That's a lie. In 5-6 years' time, whatever it may be, it's going to be mandatory.
Yeah, and my trial was completely controlled by Cedric doing what he did, and then Stephen Thomas not turning up. You know, but Stephen Thomas has been protected by Sir Keir Starmer, by Sally Sharp, CPS workers, by Suzanne Hoy, by Andrew West, by Judge Klaus, by Stephen Gattage. You know,
purely on the basis of status. That's it. The what's written must be true. Okay. Some of the notes juries sent to judges during trials reveals misunderstanding that should worry anyone who values justice. Questions such as, this is really interesting, can we base our verdict on something not in evidence? This is a genuine jury question. Are we allowed to speculate? That was a question.
These were asked at my trial. One of the jurors says, "Why isn't Mrs. Christie in the dock with Ralph Christie?" Because her name kept coming up. She was a partner in the company, but she'd had a European arrest warrant by Keir Starmer, totally illegal, in 2013, put out to get her from the UK into a Greek jail. And somebody said, "Why isn't Stephen Thomas in the dock?" You know, these are jury notes that are read out in court. So they were beginning to ask questions, but I was a lamb to the slaughter. The system had to put me in jail. Bear in mind, I'd already decided to sue them for 21 million. Look at all the names that are associated by Dr. Themis Sophos in the Greek trial: Benedict Clark, Matthew Clark, Cedric, Stephen Thomas, Mario Cercioni, Paul Walker. All these people were mentioned in Keir Starmer's letter of request in 2011. So they're all part of the Greek trial, and then they all appear as prosecution witnesses at the UK trial. It's double jeopardy.
Yeah, quite. The growing complexity of modern trials adds to the problem, and obviously we're in the digital age as well, which causes its own problem. Jurors with no legal or technical background are asked to interpret scientific data, financial documents, or digital evidence.
Yeah, well, look what D.I. Taylor wrote to the Houses of Parliament in 2021. He says the Economic Crime Unit is full of staff that can't do any other job in the police, and they want to do a 9 to 5 kind of job, but they are totally incapable of doing it. He said that in 2021. The same police force in 2025 have now put this Daniel guy, because the West Yorkshire Police haven't changed the staff and they haven't acted on the shortcomings in Operation Godstone and Operation Langham, which is mine, and it's still going on now, and it's got to stop.
Okay, when material is difficult to understand, people naturally fall back on impressions. How confident the barrister seems, this goes back to theatre. Whether the defendant appears trustworthy, that's an interesting one, isn't it? How can you appear trustworthy? Or their own unconscious biases, which we all have. It's a natural instinct to have an unconscious bias, isn't it?
Yeah, I think anybody that's anybody that's being prosecuted, you would tend to think that they've been put there because they have done something wrong.
And they're trying to wing their way out of it.
Yeah, and then you've got the likes of Tony Wormold, a friend of mine, coming into the witness box as a prosecution witness. Paul Walker, Mario Cercioni, Matthew Clark, Benedict Clark, Simon Thomas was meant to be a friend. You got the Sue Watt total lies. If that's all been fed in from now, we know from Cedric. So it just wasn't a fair trial. I mean, I did well really to get off with the 14 counts, but really they played, as we said before, they played the percentage game. Chuck a lot at him, said, "Chuck, something's going to stick."
Yeah. Okay, a person can now be convicted even if 1 or 2 jurors remain unconvinced. An old idea of being judged by one's peers rarely holds true in modern society. Teachers, students, retirees may have a little in common with the defendant in a highly technical case, because you would be one of them, actually. Meanwhile, prosecutors regularly exclude jurors with specialist knowledge, claiming they may be biased. Yet people with far less understanding and sometimes strong prejudice are accepted without hesitation. The reading into this, obviously I'm not the author, is what they're saying is, like, if you have someone that's sophisticated and has knowledge of financial systems and how transactions work and all this sort of stuff, they won't pick you as a member of the jury, but they'd rather get Joe Bloggs on benefits who just sees you as a rich Scrooge.
Yes.
And that's what they're saying here, from what I understand.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a theatre, like you say, and I didn't, really, I should have defended myself, but you put trust in these people, you don't know about all these in-house deals that are going on behind the scenes and what have you, and
Yeah, if you're remanded, it's almost impossible to defend yourself.
Well, yes.
Okay, here's the recommendations he makes: allowing the defendant to choose a jury-led trial with professional assessors or a mixed panel of experts and lay people. What do you say about that briefly? I've only got 3 more points. I've only got 5 minutes left as well.
Well, sorry, I kind of missed that question, brothers. I don't mean.
Oh, this is one of the suggestions of 4, allowing defendants to choose a judge-led trial with professional assessors or a mix
Yes.
of experts.
Yeah, that should have been what mine was, without a doubt. In fact, the truth is, Durham Hall should have asked if my trial should have gone ahead by law with Parliament because of what happened in Greece, and I pointed that out to Tirani before the trial, and he just said, "Oh, don't be so stupid. It didn't happen in Greece, or So, of course, you need professional, like the Greek trial was held by 3 professional financial crime investigators, judges, perfectly all right, fully understood how business was done, and totally exonerated me.
Okay, here's a good one. Preventing prosecutors from using irrelevant attacks or innuendo designed only to the sway of jury. Now, what this basically means is we can use theatre in court, shout louder, make it ourselves more articulate. It's what magicians do with like card tricks and all this sort of stuff. They say choose a card, and they slow the card pack down, and you don't realize that you've actually chosen the card where they slowed down the most. This is what happens in court. The one that is allowed is the one that makes it get more. Well, actually, the person that says less actually pretty much achieves a bigger goal. Someone that talks more and more and more, the jury get bored.
Yeah, and your defence tells you don't say too much, only answer the questions. Well, I wanted to go down many streets to bring all this in. Don't over answer the questions, and all the rest of it. At one point of the trial, it just reminded me, and Tirani we were talking about the Greek connections, and bear in mind, Stephanos Aridakis, my accountant, was beamed in. At the end of that, they went. Tirani made a joke about judge being, well, we can call the judge here Zeus, the frontier, and he started making names up for people with Greek gods and all the rest of it in the court. So and so it's obvious they knew the Greek trial was going on. Pandora's box was mentioned of being opened, and but they're having a laugh and a joke about it.
But the point being, though, Ralph, it gets their ears peaked up from rather than looking at or listening to Drebs, basically. Where, can we discuss this technical issue and that sort of stuff? The jurors, they're often probably bored, I imagine. And they really want to hear about Kim Kardashian. Okay. Next, let's move on. I think we've got enough time to do this. Requiring judges to explain clearly what counts as evidence and what is speculation and assumption. I mean, that's actually really, really important because that's very difficult for any layperson to really understand. Because that's 3 different tasks, and how you place into that box. That's not a question for you, but that's what they've. What he wrote.
Well, speculation, you can't rely on speculation. Judge Durham Hall said that. I can remember him saying it. But what we've relied on is Cedric's assumptions or his lies. There's no solid evidence that he's put into any of the counts, even the ones I got convicted. There's no evidence in the email that we've read, that he sent this week to these German people. I mean, I'll go and see it. I'll be sending these German people a copy of this program. I'll go and see them.
We're going to end on the most open point ever, and I wish we had more time, but we haven't. I've literally got a minute and 20 seconds. And most importantly, requiring juries to give reasons for their verdicts so that appeals can be addressed. Genuine errors. I just want to say one final point. I just want to do 30 seconds. This is massive, because if you speak to each juror, they would have a massive scope of difference of opinions for their reasoning. The problem is with this recommendation here is how you could unpack it, how can you deal with it, and it's just impossible in my opinion. I just cannot see any way you could say, well, she said that, and that person's presumption was this and that sort of thing. It's just impossible. It's just impossible. But anyway, what do you say about that, Ralph? We've got 30 seconds.
Well, Sue, what was exposed in what we read out about Dr. Femis last week in the Greek trial, 2 different statements. So one's true, one's a lie. They're both a lie. She was called a liar by Judge Thomas when she was giving evidence at the trial there. But she actually worked for Keir Starmer and the CPS in 2011, and for Interpol and the Serious Fraud Squad. So that's in itself is a massive problem. And just coming back to the Operation Larkspur, just so I get this in, his actual name was Daniel Rawson. I couldn't remember his surname, and this is something that's very, I feel sorry because he's got a young child now of 15, not going to have his dad for 5-6 years.
Wow. Okay, we need to end this episode here. Ralph, do you want to close out?
I do, yeah. But can we have Gloria? Because some of the words in that remind me of Cedric. I hear you're on the run now, and you're heading for a breakdown, and you've got voices in your head. People will help him if he just comes clean, and if it's mental issues.
Okay, we are off air, and Ralph is not with me now. It's very interesting. We've gone down a bit of different paths today for various reasons, because I think Ralph believes he's alone on this journey, and I think today he pretty much has been, other than exchanging in his email groups. And I actually like Ralph. I actually do. And that doesn't, hoodwink me, as listeners have said, that you can tell I'm not biased in relation to his story, because I always pull him up on stuff. And it's a fascinating case. It really is. And Cedric Christie, which we briefly discussed again, it plays a fundamental part in this case. And it does sadden me that he's raised his ugly head again. But I believe, as I said to Ralph, this is a good thing, because let this man bury himself even more, and then hopefully what Ralph has been saying will have to be discussed, would have to be reviewed, and the massive cover-up can perhaps come out in due course. Ralph doesn't need to be doing this with me, but he is a scorned person, and I imagine if I was a person that suffered injustice, it must labour on your mind. And I'm grateful for Ralph coming on, but also I believe that it will help many other people who perhaps in the same sort of situation, and by all accounts is having some success in Ralph's story by us sharing it. And there's a lot more to come. I'm hoping to go and see him soon. I keep on promising it, but I will do. I promise, Ralph. But on a serious note, this is a very serious subject matter. Someone has lost their liberty, gone through the judicial process, and ended up in jail. And Ralph is saying he's innocent. So if you listen to the series, and then continue on more, and just please, just understand that people, just because they enter a courtroom, doesn't make them guilty.
Gloria, you're always on the run now.
Thank you for listening to our guest stories this week.
Dreamcatcher Radio.
Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows? Only time. And who can say if your love grows as your heart shows? Only time. Who can say why your heart sighs as your love flies? Only time. And who can say why your heart cries when your love lies? Only Who can say